welcome back. If you're joining me for the first time, my name is Kaya Mara, and I'm the host of Hear Me Out podcast. Hear Me Out is a place where we discuss everything about relationships, how to navigate healthy relationships with your friends, with your families, with your loved ones, with yourself, how to figure out your purpose, figuring out who you are, figuring out where you're going, learning and unpacking a lot about where you came from, because that all translates to where we're going and who we are, and a lot about mental health. I'm all about the mind, body, soul connection. I'm all about being right within myself. There's a lot of suffering in different ways, but when there's suffering in your mind, I find that that's a different type of burden that one can carry. And so that's what we do here. If you're new, if you're not, then you know the gist. You know what this is already about. Today's episode, as you can see, it's me again. And I just really want to talk. I just really want to kind of explore and break down and uncover and figure out a topic that's been on my heart for quite a bit of time. And I'm still like learning and just kind of working through it in many ways, just trying to understand it for myself and how it's been affecting me or how it does affect me and how I can really regulate it and not be a victim or not be on the losing end of these emotions or these feelings and experiences, but rather actually be in charge and being able to control my output into the world and also into myself. So I've been kind of working with the title of this episode, and I'm not sure if it's exactly going to remain this way. So when this is out, you'll know what this is titled. But just really talking about envy and jealousy. And when I first got this, I actually don't know. I usually like to cite my sources properly. Maybe that's the scholar in me that I like to cite my sources. I can't remember exactly. I know I probably heard this from somewhere, but somebody was talking about envy and jealousy one time, and they called it the cockroaches of our emotions. I believe, if not, thank you, Holy Spirit, for that inspiration, because I feel like that title is so fitting, or that name is so fitting for envy and jealousy. And so I started to think about it and to try and break it down. What does that mean? Envy and jealousy, the cockroaches of our emotions. And then I'm started to break down, okay, what does cockroaches look like? Because this metaphor, what is this comparison? And just thinking of these creatures, these pests really, and how they infest and how they at first might seem, small and not necessarily innocent, but not as harmful as some other pests or other creatures. But the thing with cockroaches is that when you leave them or, when you don't tackle the issue, they fester and they infest the place to a level where you can no longer handle it quickly. It takes more power, it takes more time, it takes more out of you in general, and resources, in what you're actually using to handle that situation. And I thought that was so brilliant of that correlation and that metaphor. So of just relating the feelings of envy and jealousy that we so often overlook and is so not to use a buzzword, but normalized in our society, of envying people in comparison and wanting other people's lives, and the idea of that the grass is greener on the other end, on the other side, right? And so things that we think are so minute and so and maybe just not as important when put against emotions like anger, depression, or sadness or anxiety, but they are just as destructive when, ignored and not taken care of immediately. So I'm still working through a lot of my understanding on this topic, but I kind of wanted to bring this here and to have a space and have a discussion of what that kind of looks like. And so If we now start with the actual definition of what envy is, um, jealousy we'll kind of get into, but specifically on envy. So, envy can specifically be defined as a feeling of discontented or resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, qualities, or luck. Luck, blessings, increase, expansion, you know, anything of that. And what really stood out to me is that of the relation to the person themselves. Yes, it says aroused by someone. However, it's like a feeling of not that I don't want you to have that, but I don't want you to have that or experience that because of myself, bringing it back to the self. And because of I feel discontented or I feel robbed or I feel less than because of what you have. And I think that's such an interesting feeling. And I feel like that is such a deep emotion that is hidden in a lot of the things that we do and a lot of things that we say and experience. A lot of anger or frustration or passive aggressiveness or just straight on aggressiveness that we have with people. I feel like it's deep rooted in a lot of envy or jealousy because of that discontented or resentful longing, right? We're longing for fulfillment. We're longing for purpose. We're longing for recognition. Longing for recognition. Something that I've come to realize that a lot of the times of like when we envy something or when we're jealous of people for something, it's not even necessarily that, you know, we would want exactly what they have. But it's more so that we would want to be in their situation because like envy and jealousy, it's not, you can't satisfy it by getting the exact same thing. Let's say, you know, I'm jealous of Catherine for some pair of boots that she has. And I'm jealous of her because she has, you know, a 30-inch bust down. I could go get that same 30-inch bust down. I could go get that same pair of boots and wear it. And it's not a guarantee. Most times, I'm not going to feel that sense of fulfillment by just replicating and having those same things that she has. Because what I'm most likely looking for deep down inside is to be in Catherine's position because I want to be seen how she is seen. I want to feel how I assume she feels or, you know, how she portrays that she feels. So if I see her with that 30-inch bust on, I see her with those boots, you know, those DR boots, whatever they are, and I see a person that is confident. I see a person, you know, that is being recognized by people. People admire her. That's what I'm looking for deep down. That's what I actually want. That's what I'm actually missing. That's that discontentedness that I'm feeling. That's that lack of fulfillment that I'm experiencing, that I want to be there. I want to be in her place specifically. I want to feel what she's feeling. I want to stand where she's standing. Not to say I want to have what she's having, but it's like, it's so funny how we now try and reach and grab for so many things. And that's the culture. That's a culture, you know, of influencers trying to influence people to live a certain lifestyle, to chase after a certain lifestyle. And I think it's so interesting because we're always talking about the surface emotions. We're always talking about, you know, the comparison, but we're not really talking about that unfulfillment, that discontented, that resentment, you know, that lack of purpose or lack of meaning that we actually have within ourselves that is causing this envy and this jealousy. We'll just talk about the surface level, like what is actually missing? What are we actually looking for? You know, what are we confused about? What are we longing for? And so I started to think, okay, what are the times that we are most envious, or what are the times where I'm most envious, or I've been most jealous in my life? And the first thing is when I'm insecure. You know, if I'm unfulfilled in myself and I am not sure about who I am, or I'm not confident in who I am, like the spring of envy and jealousy will be gushing all the time. And you can imagine, that's why you see so many little kids. I have like a lot of nieces and nephews I talk about often, and just even thinking back to when I was a little kid, it was always fights about, oh, she has this, I want this. I remember, and I hate this now thinking back, but my mom used to dress me and my sister, who's 2 years older than me, as twins. Like, people thought we were twins because we had the same exact same clothes, like, all the time. Because if it was her birthday and she got a nice dress, I got the same dress because I would cry. If it was my birthday and I got a nice dress, she would get the same thing because she would cry and complain. And it's like, when you're at that age, you don't know who you are. You don't know, what defines you, what makes you unique. You don't know what you want. You're not sure of these things. So it's so easy for you to be jealous and for you to be envious of somebody else having nice things or having things that look good. Or, you start to grab onto, what you see other people have, because you're still trying to figure yourself out. So as a kid, it's understandable, so all the time, if my sister had something, I'd be like, I want it too. I didn't know if I wanted it. I assumed I wanted it. I assumed it was good. I assumed it made sense for me, because I didn't know within myself, like, what does Kaya really like? Is this really what Kaya? I was not thinking about those things. I was thinking, I don't know myself. Like, I don't, this just makes sense. These just look good. And it's a very, not to demean anybody, but it's a very elementary and childlike state of being, of continuously longing or having longing eyes for what other people are doing and what other people want. And it goes back to that insecurity of not knowing where you are, not knowing where you stand, not knowing what you like, not knowing what you don't like, not knowing what's for you, and, things like that. At that time when we start to look around at life and things don't seem to be matching up, especially to what we may have anticipated or what we may have expected, we eventually just start to compare. And that's all we have to do at a human level. What else can we do at that time when we don't really know? Okay, things are not working so well for me. I've finished school. I started working a good job, but I'm not really enjoying my job. I don't really think that this is a place that I need to be. I'm kind of in between careers. Should I pivot careers? I see a lot of people are pivoting. When I say that they're being successful, they're, getting success in their workplaces and in their careers. Or I see some people that they went back to school, they're getting another degree, they're moving forward. Or some people are starting families. You start to compare, right? Because what you've been doing so far just hasn't been working. And so from that place of insecurity, instead of dealing with that insecurity, it's okay, let's not focus on in here, let's focus on out here, because that's what I'm seeing that's not working. But it's like, a lot of the times what we need to do is go back to what is really at the core and what is really bubbling and making everything bubble up to the top, because it doesn't start from the top, it starts from the bottom. So it's kind of knowing that oftentimes when we are battling with these feelings of jealousy and of envy and of comparison, is because we're unsure and unfulfilled and insecure with what we have and what our life is looking like now. And a lot of times we could be feeling insecure because we're falling short in specific areas. There's times where I have set myself up and said, I expect of myself to be at this level, or I expect of myself to be at this stage, or people expect this of me because maybe I have lived up to these certain expectations before. I used to be a scholar in school and I used to be all these things. And so now when that expectation doesn't seem to be hitting, maybe, marks aren't as great, or just your performance in life, people expect of you to be a certain way, a certain attitude, a certain energy level. And, maybe with the weight of life, you're not meeting that. And so that insecurity, without dealing with those, expectations in that internal battle, it's easy. It's a breeding ground for envy and jealousy to really captivate your heart at that time. Because what else can you do if you're not ready to look in, but to look outside at other people and compare and blame and, kind of feel like a victim or feel like life is happening to you instead of you taking charge of your life. And so, as I was kind of thinking more about that and just thinking about, okay, like this feeling of insecurity, it's so hard to escape because in this day and age, like comparison it's just everywhere. It's everywhere. Like when you're not performing how you want to, especially like the example of like jobs, when you're not performing how you want to, you could be like at your job and could have been going good, and then suddenly, maybe you're not performing as well as you wanted to or as you expected to. The last place you want to go at that time in your life when you're vulnerable, because that's what you are, like you're emotionally, your heart is vulnerable, right? And that time when you're not sure of yourself, the last place you want to go is LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, like you'll have somebody saying, happy to announce, I will be joining NASA as the youngest astrophysicist, for their next trip to Mars. Like, going on LinkedIn, going on LinkedIn will make you feel like you have not achieved anything in life. And it's just like we need to be so diligent, and we need to stop underestimating, how much how much we need to guard our hearts. Like guarding your heart is not a matter of when people are only directly coming to attack you, or life feels, very aggressive or heavy. It's in every day. Like guarding your heart is knowing that at this time I'm actually struggling with these insecurities, and at this time I'm actually fighting, this feeling of being unsure, or of feelings of, jealousy towards my surroundings. And I actually do not need to be consuming or engaging with such information or such people. And I feel like we underestimate that, at that time, I need to be an adult. I'm a grown person. This is that. Yeah. And grown people can take wise steps and know their limits and know their boundaries. Like, I feel like these are things that people often underestimate and overestimate their capacity to actually manage these feelings and manage, what they're experiencing. And the truth is, you are at the level that you are at. If you have the emotional regulation skills to do that, then you can do that. If you can't, then you are at the level that you are at, and you need to be real with yourself and, work towards getting where you need to be, but starting and knowing that you are at the level where you're at. And so when I go further and I think about like some other things that people, are kind of, when we're most envious or when we're most jealous, you also just think about when we're distracted. When I am distracted, when you're distracted, and I've talked about this a lot of the times, about the importance of focusing and running your race. Because when you are distracted and you're meant to be running your race. Everybody is meant to be running your race. But when you're distracted, you're not running your race. Like imagine, being in a 100-meter dash race or whatever, 200 meters, some sort of track and field race. Everybody's in their lines, everybody's in their queues. Some people's lines might be doubled. Some people's might be, two times your size, maybe because they're doing more, they're occupying more space. Some people's might be shorter, whatever. Everybody is in their space. Everybody is in their race, right? You can't watch and run at the same time. You can't. You just can't do that. You can't watch and run at the same time. You're able to see, observe, and experience what's going on around you, but at the same time, you have to be running. The moment that you stop to watch, you stop running. And I think that's the easiest way for us to allow envy and jealousy in. Because the moment I stop running and I start watching, now I'm thinking, they're running and I'm not running. And discouragement comes in. I'm already far behind. Do I start running again? Like, how do I move forward? Because what you've done is you've put yourself in a position to watch people from behind move forward as you are stuck in a place. And yeah, you can keep going, but you've already lost that time. You've already lost that. You already introduced that discouragement, right? And so I found it so interesting when people are distracted, and you'll find it a lot. And you have to really catch yourself in these times, because these are the times where you'll be more active on social media. You know, you should be working, you should be investing the time in, you know, whatever you're doing, if that's reading, if that's your studies, if that's your relationships, you know, with families and building and investing there, if that's learning more about how to grow your business, if that, whatever it may look like to you, if that's focusing on your health, you know, focusing on learning about your body, what kind of foods are good for you. When you are now spending more time on what other people are doing, and you're focusing on what other people, how other people are moving on with us, and not in a way of actually trying to learn and improve and educate yourself, but in the way of just idle interest, idle interest, and just you know, consuming this information that you're not putting to use, but you're just storing in your mind, in your heart, in your heart, right? And it's so important, because when we're diligent in our ways, there's no room for comparison. Like, have you ever seen somebody that is like focused on their work? You can, you know, some of the greatest athletes, the greatest performers, the greatest artists, the greatest, you know, politicians, activists, you know, doctors, anybody who is in their profession that you see has made it far, has not been focused on what everybody else around them is doing. They've been focused on, what do I have to do, and how, and what do I need to do, you know, what do I have to do, where am I going, and what do I need to do to get where I'm going, and what do I have in my hands, and how can I, to the best of my ability, use what is in my hands to help others, or what problems are around me, and how can I use my knowledge, my experience, my resources to fix and to address these problems. But if I'm now watching and observing, not for the purposes of learning, just idle interest, like, it's so easy to be like, you know, look at this genius, look at this person, like, they're so busy, they're so active. It's not even because they could be busy and they could be doing things wrong for however long, but at least they're doing something, and at least they're like learning and honing in on their craft. And it's so important, because at that times, and those times, it's like, if I stop and I watch, you know, Chelsea or whatever, I'm going off course, and I kind of lose my way in what I need to be doing. And so I've just learned that focus and staying on my race, and knowing that this is what is going to help me not just get far in life, but this is what is going to help me emotionally. Like, in knowing that this is important for my emotional and my mental health. We underestimate how interconnected certain things are. Like, diligence is not just about, you know, actually succeeding in your career or going far, getting money, you know, the accolades and that. Like, diligence is connected to our emotional health, our mental health, our spiritual health, you know, our relationships. It's all about diligence. It's all about how invested and how focused we are on these things. If I'm focused on how other people are doing in their relationships, what time will I have? I'll be missing the people around me that are loving me, that are pouring into me, that I should be pouring back into, but I can't do that when I have kept my mind on what other people are doing. And where I have kept my mind is where I'm also keeping my heart, right? So I've just kind of realized that, like, it takes a lot of focus and a lot of intentionality to really observe yourself and know that, hey, like, you're not as well trained or as emotionally regulated as you thought you were. There are times where you're just going to be more vulnerable, and those are the times where you need to be more steadfast. You need to be steadfast to catch yourself. Because envy and jealousy, like I said, they are cockroaches. These are not things that you just let and you experience. You just let be, and you just, you know, experience them as like, oh, okay, you know, like, yeah, I wish I was there, but I'm not begging, You're not begging now, but soon, like soon you could be begging, or soon you could be in that moment, and all those thoughts come flooding to you at once. They're like, look at what this person is doing, and I can't believe you haven't done this, and you should be doing this, and they people expect of you. Like, they're so important to catch. They're so important to catch. They're so important to catch. Like, I can't emphasize, like, it's so important to catch at that time. And I just realized that in general, like, our culture and has just produced in us nature of not liking what's ours. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the amount of information and people that we have available at our dispense, and that are just not in proximity, but they are, we're able to connect with people globally. We're able to learn things at such a fast rate. We're able to get all types of information that this generation, we just overindulge in the idea of having so many options and getting to taste everything, that I think this is also what plants seeds of envy and jealousy. Because it's like, okay, yes, it's inspirational. Yes, it's like, I see that these people are able to achieve this. I see that this is as far as I can go. I see that this is a possibility. But it's also like, I have this. I have this house. I have this degree. I have this relationship. I have this family. I have this community. I have this job. My career is going good. But is this enough? And it's always these thoughts of, is this enough? Look what this person has. I can have more. I can do this. I can pivot into this industry. I can do this. And it's just like, not to say it's bad, but it's has so much potential for destruction, if that makes sense. It has so much potential for confusion and separation, because the mind and the heart is just everywhere. Not that it's changing and focusing in areas. It's separated. It's dispersed. And it's almost like we've lost our ability to be content. I don't even want to say with the little things, because these things in life aren't little, but just to be content and to appreciate and to love and to celebrate, and to know what is ours and what is good for us. I've just really, really, really been so adamant for myself of like making it clear to me and defining what is mine and what I enjoy, and what is not mine, what I don't enjoy. And maybe that ties into the ideas of success that we have for ourselves as well. Because I feel like if you have not defined success for yourself, especially at this point in life, it's going to be very hard to feel fulfilled and to feel like you are really achieving something. And so for me, I've really, and I take it day by day of really defining what is success for me. Because if you don't, when you see people now achieving success, you might feel intimidated, or you might feel challenged that you have not achieved success because you have not done that specific thing. So for me, success is not at all one day opening a chain of ice cream shops, or one day having, a shoe brand or something like that. But that might be success for somebody else. And if I'm not assured of that, I could see somebody on LinkedIn the next day so glad to announce that I'm opening my first ice cream shop, and I'll be thinking like, damn, like, how did they do that? Wow, this is amazing. They must have really invested in themselves. They must have really worked hard. And yes, all those things are true. And I'll be thinking, why can I have thought of that? But it's like, when I'm assured that that's not my path in life, that's not what success looks like to me, then I'm able to celebrate them. I'm able to be like, wow, that's amazing. They did do work. I'm sure they invested in themselves, and like, good for them. Look what they've been able to accomplish. They've been able to achieve success. And I'm still working on mine, and mine takes however long it takes, and I'm still figuring things out. And I feel like when we don't define those things, and we don't define what success looks like to us specifically, it would be hard to be fulfilled. And so I asked myself this question. I was thinking, the Holy Spirit like gave me this question. He's like, if you had no other people to compare your life to, how would you know, or how would you be assured that you are fulfilled, or that you lived your life fulfilled? And I thought about that. I was like, that's very true. If there was nobody else around for me that defined success for me, that gave me an idea of what success could look like, how would I know that I'm fulfilled? How would I know that I'm content? How would I know? How would I be assured that I've lived my life, or I've strived for and I've achieved what would make me fulfilled? And I think that's a question that we all need to ask ourselves. How are we measuring our fulfillment? Is it by the standards of God? Is it by His standards and what He's purposed in us and the assignments He's given us? Is it by the talents we have and getting them to a certain level? Is it what we just would assume we should do? I think it's a question that people should ask. I think it's a question that you should ask if you're listening to this. Ask yourself, if there was nobody else, if you had no idea, if nobody ever spoke to you about what success looks like, nobody else, around you did anything significant, how would you know that you have lived, that you have achieved, that you have strived to fulfillment? Because often we're measuring based on what other people are doing. Not that that is bad, but I feel like if we don't start from within ourselves, then we can kind of lose ourselves in that way. And that's something that I'm still pondering, honestly, in a lot of ways. I don't think it's a question that I can just answer once. I think it's a question that that I'm probably going to have to look to different areas in my life and answer multiple times, and maybe, even refine my answer. But I think that just thinking about this helps us to really regulate ourselves more and set our expectations for ourselves better and for our relationships, because the way envy and jealousy can stifle intimacy in relationships is very alarming. You can't be around somebody that is envious of you. You can't be around somebody that is trying to take your man. Like, imagine being friends with a girl or a woman that has eyes for your man. Like, you can't be around somebody like that. You're gonna feel defensive all the time. Like, you're gonna want to be defensive. You're gonna want to be aggressive and on the offense. It's just like, that you can't be around that, and so that intimacy cannot happen in that relationship. And if you are the envious person, you can't relate to that person anymore. It's like even getting near them feels like you're getting near the sun. It's too painful on your already vulnerable heart. And without working on that, and without working, like, you lose that intimacy, you lose that potential, and that closeness that you can develop in those relationships, especially in friendships. I like, not to bash on women, but in a lot of female friendships, like, envy is like that elephant in the room that a lot of women don't want to talk about. And maybe it's just the fact that women are more expressive with their emotions, that you can feel it. Not to say that it doesn't happen, in other dynamics, but maybe it's just that women are more expressive, that you can feel it. But I would definitely say that it's there in a lot of relationships, because a lot of, women are amazing, beautiful, talented, smart, gifted. And it seems like, and if you are still working on yourself, you're still figuring out, your likes, your dislikes, you're still figuring out who you are, in such a, entanglement, in such a dynamic, it can be so easy for envy and jealousy, because you'll see other strong, beautiful women, and you'll want to be like that, or you'll want to aspire to that, because you're still figuring yourself out. And in a lot of female friendships, I feel like jealousy and envy, because of that unfulfillment, because of that, those unanswered questions that women have within themselves, or that insecurity, those doubts that they have within themselves, there's so much contention and so much jealousy and envy. Not that they don't want to celebrate their friends, not that they don't want to be there for them, not that they don't love them, but it's hard to express that when you are fighting within yourself. That it seems like this person is who you want to be. It seems like this person is living the life that you want to live, and you don't know how to get there, and you don't know who you are, or how you can develop, or how you can embrace to the fullness and walk in the confidence of who you are. And I feel like a lot of women really need to challenge themselves to be more honest with themselves on an individual level and in their friendships, of the things that they're struggling with and things that they're unsure of or still battling with, and the internal conflicts with identity that they're still carrying around. And I feel like that would free up a lot of that tension and allow for more intimacy, allow for more honesty, allow for more love. And so with all of this, like, I kind of think about how do you deal with these emotions, because clearly they impact our relationships. Clearly they are dangerous to ourselves individually and internally, and dangerous potentially to other people. And so when I think about how do you deal with them, you tackle them at first sight. Like, I call them cockroaches for a reason, because the moment that you let them settle in, they fester, they infest. Like, they multiply and they increase at an exponential rate. So you tackle them at first sight. Not to say that you're not, honest, but you tackle them at first sight. And so it starts with pulling back and reassessing what is actually going on here. And it's so interesting because our bodies will really tell us. Like, you'll find that if you deal with these emotions, your body will tense up in certain situations. When certain topics are brought up and you feel insecure, when certain people come around and you feel threatened or you feel challenged, your body will physically tell you if you pay attention. And so in these times, you step back and you reassess, what is my body telling me? What are my emotions telling me? What am I actually feeling? Give names to these emotions. Like, I sound so elementary, but like, this is something that people have not been taught to do. They don't know how to label their emotions. It's either anger, sadness, confusion, and it's like, and that's not even an emotion, but like, we don't have names for exactly how we feel, so we're not actually able to work through and process them. So pull back, like, what am I missing? Why do I feel, or what do I feel in this moment? Or what am I missing that is making me feel unfulfilled? Is this a feeling of unfulfillment? Is this a feeling of, whatever it is? And then what should I be doing in this time? Am I focused on something else? Is that why I'm feeling this way? Did I stop running my race? Am I, is it like unaddressed, things that are kind of coming up now that I need to address? So it's kind of like knowing, did I avoid something, and knowing what should I be doing now? What is my body telling me? What is my mind telling me? What is coming up first in my spirit that I've been missing this time? And when you're doing that, that's, all the internal stuff. But the one you zoom through these quickly, because what you need to get to is, and this is what I do, this is what I've been practicing, and it helps me. I pray for those people. I ask the Lord to bless them. I say, Lord, bless them. May you increase them. When it is, when I'm noticing and I'm having recurring feelings of envy or jealousy, God forbid it, like sense of bitterness or whatever, not bitterness, can't remember the word, but God forbid it extends to something more extreme, I pray for them, because you can't have light and dark. They can't coexist. You can't be experiencing envy and jealousy and love and peace come in. Something has to go. So I pray for them. It doesn't mean I enjoy it. Doesn't mean I necessarily want to, but I force myself to, because as I'm saying these things, as I'm professing these blessings, as I'm encouraging them, as I'm celebrating, I'm teaching my mind this, I'm teaching my heart this, I'm teaching my body this. My mind starts to believe what I'm saying, as I'm confessing with my words, my mind is starting to agree with me. My heart is starting to agree with the words that I'm confessing. And so it helps to actually counteract that in that moment. And I think that's something that I would encourage a lot of people. If that's what you're feeling and it really feels like I can't even be in the same space as these people, or I can't even move forward, I think that's what you really need to do, because it's less, it is about focusing on the internal battle, but you also need to tackle it from that perspective and not let the idea of a person turn bitter or turn dark in your heart. Lisa Bevere said something that I think was, it sounds very elementary, but I think it was very, very beautiful and very simple and practical and insightful. She said, "You grow more in love when you behave in loving ways." And we would think like, oh yeah, of course, but we don't actually practice this. You know, if we're feeling emotions of anger, we act in anger. If we're feeling emotions of betrayal, we pull back and we act according to those emotions. But it's just like, you're feeling these things, but what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? I'm feeling envious, but I want to be loving. I want this relationship, so I have to put myself in positions and force myself to act in loving ways. Which, and she said it in the context of marriage and, you know, fostering a healthy marriage, but this obviously goes beyond that. And I think we need to recognize that these are emotions and these are feelings that don't just happen to us. We're not just victims of these. We choose those emotions. We choose and we attach these emotions to different stimuli. So you choose the love that you give. You choose the love that you attach to different things. You choose the offense that you pick up. You choose the things that you believe and how you respond to these things. So we act like we're not in control, but we are. And I think that you can't expect to have an unobstructed heart, and you can't expect for love and peace to flow freely without prioritizing love and peace and prioritizing walking in love and walking in truth and honesty and walking in peace towards people. And yeah, I think I'm still figuring out, like I'm talking like I've got it all figured out, but I'm still figuring out a lot of this stuff, and I'm still working on it within myself, like every day. And trying my best to be very diligent, because what we never want to do is to let these emotions isolate us and let it grow to feelings of guilt, to feelings of resentment, and God forbid bitterness. But it's so important that we tackle it head on, and so important that we prioritize. And as we say that we want to enjoy love and peace, that we prioritize these things in our everyday behavior. Yeah.